God bless sir and everyone. So this is my report all about producing inclusive policies and evolving conclusive practices. But before that, let me define what is inclusive policy is. So what is an inclusive policy? It is a community that prioritizes equity works to ensure that all community members have access to what they need to be successful and that resources are distributed based on needs. The inclusion on this is inclusion efforts aim to build a culture of belonging by actively inviting the contribution and participation of people. That is according to my research. So, as reiterated in the previous chapters, the premise of inclusion starts with an acceptance and embracing of diversity. Now, it is difficult to start movement of this practice is not rooted on a culture that assumes the right perspective and values. So, according to UNESCO 2005, realistically acknowledges that a societal change in attitude need not be initially present in a community before inclusion can be fully practiced. Rather, it must be viewed as a perspective or an ideal to work toward. So without this realization, differences in standards and quality of education may surface as potential problems. So just very recently, the pre-service education curriculum was restructured so that special needs education units are not only given to special needs education majors but rather education majors as well. So this is a huge step for teachers and non-inclusive education. So the following is a list of other possible steps that educators can take to facilitate the much needed societal shift and inform policy. So let's start with this one. It involves other sectors of society. So current training and awareness campaigns seem to limit the movement of inclusion to a mere home-school relationship. At most, these are extended to departments for social welfare and health. So, however, for an inclusive setup to truly be successful, active involvement of the entire community must be ensured. For instance, those in the business, commercial, security, and religious sectors must also be given representation in trainings. So this campaign must be wide enough to scope as to cover supermarkets, not restaurants, malls, public and government agencies not directly associated with social welfare or health, transformation, transportation, land, airline, and maritime companies, media, and even the researcher teams of our policy makers. So the next one is collaborate. Whether creating an academic program specific to a child with additional needs or creating a new legislative bill for the PWD community, collaboration is crucial. So each member of the inclusive education team would have their strengths and weaknesses, uh, and these have to be used wisely to benefit the child with additional needs. And according to Del Coro Tiangco, 2014, states that general education teachers are trained in the general curriculum but would not know how to teach and manage children with additional needs, while a special needs education teacher would be equipped to handle typical behaviors but would have not know much about the general education curriculum. True collaboration would guarantee an inclusive program that would cover as many areas as possible. Next is recognize the shift in roles of the teacher. With the step to inclusive education, The role of special education or SPED teachers suddenly seems to be reduced to only as needed. As a result, the SPED teacher's role no longer becomes that of an implementer, but that of a consultative nature instead. It also becomes the responsibility of the general education teacher to know what to do when faced with a learner with additional needs in his or her classroom. So that's just some rule of the teacher, not just sa mga estudyante niya no nga she know nga kaya lang, but also for those students na have special needs. The next one is include transition in planning. An abrupt systemic change that is not well planned or that disregards practices with existing or implied may hinder the shift to inclusion and cause resentment from all stakeholders. So both UNESCO and SCO 2002 recommend that schools reflect on their current policies and practices to check their readiness for an inclusive setup. So there are specifically schools may look at the following. But they also devise a questionnaire that would help administrators, faculty, and other stakeholders comprehensively gather baseline data. A move that would greatly help in informing policy would be to examine different aspects of the school and the delivery of its services. So specifically, school may look at the following. So let's proceed to the next one. Evolving inclusive practices. So evolving inclusive practices is the third dimension of Booth and Ainscow framework for schools. That is when it is year 2002, where administrators must first try to create an inclusive culture among its stakeholders, then build better, more all-encompassing policies. So the goal of the first two steps is to ascertain habit-forming conditions, which make procedures that are otherwise unfamiliar feel like second nature to us. Moreover, the term evolving assumes that we already have strategies in place which we just have to revisit or for possible uh, tweaking. It suggests advancement and positive growth, which means we can look at these existing strategies and just adjust this according to the needs of our students along the way. So there are two effective evidence-based inclusive practices that can be used in the classroom. These are the universal design for learning and the differentiated instruction. In architecture, universal design refer to structures that were made in such a way that they can be used by customers or clients with a wide range of needs, from Duke and Lamardukes 2009, as cited in Sealand 2011. Such designs ensure accessibility for all. For example, in architecture designs commercial complex where ramps, elevator, uh, escalators, handrails, wide doorways and sidewalks and signs embossed in braille bound. It is a very user-friendly building. Obviously, the designer imagined that some customers might walk into the complex in a wheelchair or white canes. So the architecture does not know if or when it's going to happen, but he anticipated it and incorporated it into his design anyway. So this is a retrieve from HTTP from this link, such as the mechanics of universal design for learning approach to instruction. So it refers to design of instructional materials and activities to make the content information accessible to all children. So by a far selection, everybody has to take the same exam. So please climb that tree. So can an elephant climb a tree? Diba? Dili. So, nana. So in UDL, teachers are supposed to present information and materials in many different ways, taking into consideration that some students may not have not fully absorbed the lesson the first time it was presented. The concept of multiple means or representation is meant to ensure that all students are able to access and understand learning materials. After this, teacher uses different techniques. Teacher allows students to express what they learn in various ways. And finally, the teacher uses different techniques to reinforce learning at the students' optimal levels. So, the principle of UDL, which sometimes overlap, are presented below with examples. So, there are 8 principles. So, principle number 1, the equitable use, which is inclusive practices are designed to be useful, appealing, and safe for all students, families, and professionals to use individual differences and various contexts are expected. So, example, use UDL principles equitably. Principle number 2, flexible use. Inclusive practices are designed to accommodate the individual preferences, abilities, and needs of all students, families, and professionals. Flexibility in providing choices for methods and pacing are exercise. Principle number 3, simple and intuitive use. So, inclusive practices are designed to be easy for all to use and understand. So, example given is establish classroom rules and routines. So, diba? So, principle number 4 is the perceptible information. Inclusive practices are designed so that they communicate valuable information to all through various formats. Principle number 5, tolerance for error. Inclusive practices are designed to minimize error and unintended consequences by providing safeguards and warnings to assist all using them safely. So, principle number 6 is low physical effort. Inclusive practices are designed to be used comfortably, and efficiently without much effort from them. So, principle number 7 is size and space for approach and use. So, inclusive practices are designed for use by all, regardless of their mobility, physicality, or way of communication. The next one is principle number 8. Inclusive practices are designed to promote social interaction and communication for all. The example given is use project-based learning or establish a strong home school partnership and classroom check-ins and check-outs. The last principle is number 9, inclusive environment. So, inclusive practices are designed to foster acceptance and sense of belongingness of all. For example is allow bonding activities. So, that will help the children to be much have fun while learning. So, the number 2 is differentiated instruction. According to Tomlinson 2010, differentiating instruction is a teacher's response to students, so varying needs, interests, and learning styles. It refers to a systematic approach to planning curriculum and instruction for academically diverse learners. It is a way of thinking about the classroom with the dual goals of honoring each student's learning needs and maximizing students' learning capacity. When teachers differentiate instruction, they use a variety of teaching and learning strategies that are necessary to meet the diverse needs of students in any class. Why differentiate instruction? All learners are unique and have varying interests, talents, strengths, as well as needs. Hence, it is essential that teaching and learning experiences reflect this diversity. To ensure engage in a successful and flourishing learners, teaching and learning experiences need to be designed in a way that provide opportunities for students to learn and demonstrate their understanding in varied ways. Thus, differentiating instruction helps ensure that learners are engaged in respectful tasks and provide diverse means of learning that reflect their strengths and address their needs simultaneously. So next, how is instruction differentiated? According to Bender in 2002, cited by Gentry et al. 2013, uh, identified elements of the curriculum that can be differentiated. First, the content. Second is the process. Third, the product. And fourth is the learning environment in response to the students' characteristics, interests, readiness, and learning profile. As an overview, differentiation is achieved by providing materials and tasks. Letter A, it is at varied levels of difficulty, with varying levels of instructional support by using multiple grouping arrangement that involve student choice and use varied evaluation strategies. So the table shown below is the differentiation strategies, the content, the process, the product, and learning environment. First, what is taught, and the process is how is it taught. The product is how is it assessed, and the learning environment is how is the classroom arranged, and so on. So that would be all I can share for today's activity. Thank you and God bless everyone.